What is up, y'all? It is Jerry once again from Team Unco Studios, back with another MPC Beats very basic tutorial for you all using the MPC Beats software. All right. So in this next video, we're going to start to break down how to kind of use our automation line and how to use it for different things. In this case, we're going to be using it for tuning today and how to tune, our drum, whether it be like a kick, a snare, or whatever it is, right? So that's the point of the video today, okay? We're also going to go over a couple of things as far as shortcuts and different ways and easier ways for you to do things using our shortcuts. And then we're also going to kind of go over the difference between our main mix, like our full mix of everything, and kind of our little, what I like to call micro mixes of, little tiny breakdowns of things where it's within a track, there are specific little tiny tracks, okay? I know it sounds confusing, but we're going to jump into this right now, okay? So if we go and take a gaze down on my screen here, you will notice that I've got just some MIDI in here and I've pulled a sample over, and this is a hi-hat. I chose a hi-hat because it's easy enough for us to use so I can tune it and you could tell the difference between what it sounds like, all right? This is not about, making sick beats or anything like that yet, you guys, okay? So the hi-hat is very basic, all right? So I've also dropped my metronome down to 98 BPM, if you notice, okay? So there's a little bit of construction I did here before we started the tutorial, right? I've also got a kick up here, and I will show you later in the video why I threw a kick up here. We're going to kind of add the two together and do a couple little tricks, that I've learned as a producer, all right? And how to do them on MPC Beats. So the first line that I've got here is this little hi-hat. So let's listen to it first, okay? Okay, so you'll notice there's two different sections here, and you can just see it visually where the hi-hat kind of goes into these little doubles there, and you're hitting quarter notes now as opposed to just going, every other here. It kind of goes dot right here in this section, and then dot here on this section, right? So I want to take these sections and I want to tune them higher so that it's going to go deet, right? I want to tune this up. Right now, it's all in the same tune, right? So how do I do that? Okay. So the way that we're going to do this is we are going to be using automation, okay? And what automation is it's going to be telling our little, each one of our little MIDI triggers here when we want it to go up and when we want it to go down. That's kind of the basics of automation. Automation could be used for a ton of different things, but for this, we are going to be telling it when we want the tuning to engage, like up in pitch, and when we want it to go down in pitch, all right? So first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get our tuning line into our automation line here, okay? So if you see where I'm at here, I'm going to zoom in there, okay? And you'll see there's my automation line, all right? So I want to get where in my little automation window here where it says tuning, okay? So first thing I need to make sure is that I am on the little pad that I want here, okay? In this case, it's A1, all right? So I want to make sure I'm on my A1 pad, or what pad that I'm going to be giving the tuning line to, right? The automation line, all right? So right now I have this hi-hat that we're going to be giving it to, all right? So then I'm going to zoom in again, and you'll notice right here where I'm circling, there's this little downward arrow there, and this little menu pops up, okay? And there's different things on this menu, and for right now, we're not going to go over those. We can go over them in a different video. If you would like to see that, leave a comment down below, okay? But for right now, we're going to go down to the bottom of that menu where it says pad A1, okay, which is the pad that we're currently working on. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to where it says parameters. Now, when you hit parameters, this huge menu pops up of all this stuff, all right? I know it looks intimidating, but what we're looking for is the very top one of our far left list that says tuning, okay? So I'm going to go one more time through it so we can see how to get here, okay? So I'm going to go to this little downward arrow here. I'm going to go to my A1 pad, all right? I'm going to go to my parameters, and I'm going to go to tuning, Okay, so now that I've hit that, you'll notice now I've got a tuning line here, okay? But I've got nothing here. Once I hit, and pop it on with my pencil up here, I will be activated and you'll see the tuning line now come on, all right? Now, if you notice, there's these little dots that kind of pop up already. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not, all right? These are what I like to just call our node points. You can call them dots. You can call them whatever you want, right? But for me, because it's tuning, we're going to be calling these our tuning nodes, okay? Because we can set them wherever we want, right? Now, if I just go back to my arrow tool, right, and I double click, you'll notice it put a new one there, right? If I go Command Z, that undoes, the action that you just did, okay? But I like to kind of use the pencil. So if I go pencil, or if you used your P key, okay, so if I go back to arrow and I just hit P, that goes to my pencil, all right? And you can just kind of write in, you see how I'm doing this here? Your tuning line, okay? And then if you want to erase it, if you just hit your E, the eraser activates, and then you can just go through and erase it, and now we've got nothing here, okay? So if, again, like I said, I go back to P and I use my pencil, I want this line right here to be a different tuning, all right? So I'm gonna activate my pencil, and I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of write in a little bit of a line there, okay? And actually, I want it to go up in tune. So I'm gonna come up this way, all right? And if you notice when I'm hovering over the little tuning nodes there, okay, you'll see where it says tuning 77, right? I'm going, the way I see it is just as a percentage. So I'm going 77% above pitch of where this is right here, okay? If I'm going down below, you'll notice it goes into the negative there, right? So now you'll notice, see, it goes into a negative 100. And so that's why you can't really use the percentage thing, but I just use the percentage because it makes sense to me. You can do it however you want. You can just count it by negative if you want, it's fine, okay? But if you notice now, when I am up here in my tuning, okay, you'll notice when I get to this spot, the tuning now will be different on the hi-hat, all right? Let's listen. Okay, so you notice we've changed the tune now to this hi-hat, okay? So some of these little nodes here, I don't want there, so I'm gonna go back to my erase tool, okay? So that's E shortcut on your pad, and I'm just gonna erase these guys right here, okay? So I'm gonna just erase those, okay? I'm gonna add another node here. If I go back to my arrow tool, add another node here, if I can. There we go, okay? All right, and now I've just got one section that moves up and down, okay? So now I can kind of mess around with where I want this to come in and out, okay? So I'm gonna play again. So, I can go up in tuning, I can go down in tuning, right? So let's say right here is where I want this, right? Okay, so now I've got this here. Okay, so it almost kind of sounds like a mix between almost like a snare and a hi-hat now, right? Because I've pitched the tune down, right? Now I'm gonna come over to this last section and I'm gonna bring this up, okay? So again, I'm just gonna go to my pencil tool and I'm just gonna draw kind of in a little line here, right? Now I'm gonna go to my eraser tool and erase some of these nodes here in the middle, okay? Okay. And now I'm going to bring this tuning up and kind of leave this down a little bit just on the end here, okay? So let's see what we've got now. Okay, so I'm just adding a different kind of feel there to that hi-hat as opposed to it just being nothing on that automation line and just having just this feel there, right? It's kind of just adding a little bit of a variety there for me on this in this, little line that I have here, okay? Now you can do this multiple times in a program, meaning I can have different paths with different automation lines, okay? So let's go ahead and try that really quick, all right? So let's go ahead and say we're gonna add, let's add a kick, okay? So I've got a kick here already, like a little bass house kick, all right? Let's just go ahead, and mind you, I'm doing this without the controller, okay? This is just, I'm just penciling this stuff in with my arrow, okay? And the arrow command on here is just A, I believe. Whoops, hold on, wait a minute. I messed that up. Okay, there we go. So I believe it's just, let's see what it is here. It's S, I'm sorry, because it's S for select tool. So the S is for your select tool, the P is for your pencil, and the E is for your eraser, okay? So if I go back to S now, I've got my little selector here, okay? And I'm just gonna double tap and pencil in some, I don't know what we're doing here. Let's listen here. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Let's listen to this. Okay, yeah, so that sounds good, right? So now another little trick I'm gonna show you guys here is if I wanna duplicate this, right? So let's say I wanna duplicate this, and instead of going through and having to keep penciling in more, right? There's a couple of ways I can do this. I can just simply copy and paste, right? By just highlighting all of these, right? Let me try it again here. Highlighting these, right? Hitting Command C, which is copy, and then hitting Command V, and that's paste, right? So if that's one way you can do it, right? Now, you want to make sure that wherever you're going to be pasting your cursor here, this white line, your playback cursor, is where you want it to be set in order for that copy to come out, okay? So the way that you can move this without having to drag it this way with your mouse is two different ways, okay? The first way is to use your right and left arrow keys on your keyboard, right? So it would be your right and left arrow key, and the left key has the comma on it, so it's a left arrow with the comma, and then the right arrow with the period, okay? Those are these two guys right here that I'm touching that make the cursor move, okay? So if I just hit the arrows by themselves, it makes it move per bar. You see that? How I'm going bar to bar, right? Okay? But if I hit shift and arrow, it goes every little quarter there, or every little in between there, okay? You see that? All right? So now I can navigate where I want to go pretty quickly, okay? See, and I can be able to put things where I want them to go, okay? Now, on your keyboard, you also have an arrow keys that are like up, down, left, and right, right? Your kind of four-way arrow keys. Those also are shortcuts for MPC beats as well. And what those do is move your MIDI line around the grid, okay? So if you notice my kick line there, if I want to go up 2, 1, 2, I can go down 2, I can go over, I can go back, okay? That's what those arrows do. And this is really helpful, especially when you're doing like keyboard lines and stuff, and you want to do two different harmonies, kind of together, one maybe above C and one below C. This is great because you can just basically copy paste one and then just put them separate on two lines, and now you've got two harmonies going together, right? So it's a really, really cool way of kind of shortcutting your way around, right? So the other way that you can do this, which is another way that I've also learned, is by cloning. Now a clone will just automatically clone this from wherever it is. So if I hit Command D, it automatically just clones this right where this last, MIDI marker stops right here, okay? So that's the difference between like a clone and a copy and paste. If you notice, this did not come out where the cursor is right here, right? It just automatically slapped a new one out. That has its, ways of being useful, but you can do that and then just move your arrow key over, and now you're in position where you want to be, right? So it's however your workflow goes, okay? But that's a couple of shortcuts kind of off of that, tuning drums, okay? So back into this really quick. If you notice on the screen, I've got now doubled up the kick line there. So let's listen. Okay, and if you're wondering where my tuning went, right? Because you notice my automation window is different here. I'm highlighted on this kick now. So if I go back here to my hi-hat, you'll notice now, if I go to tuning, there's my tuning that I did for the hi-hat, okay? So this is my automation window right here, all right? So let's go back up to this. And if you remember how we went to our tuning, let's go ahead and go to our little arrow here. I'm gonna go to my A2 pad. I'm gonna go to my parameters. I'm gonna go to tuning. And now I've got a tuning line opened up for my kick, all right? So right here on these three kicks, let's go ahead and add a little bit of spice here. So I'm gonna hit P, which is for my pencil up here, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and add like maybe just a little bit of something like in here somewhere, okay? So, all right, and let's bring this up. Okay, so let's hear what this sounds like. So you hear that? It just dropped down there. It kind of goes boom, 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 right? Okay, and it just totally adds so much more flavor to just a kick and a hi-hat, right? It just, it adds like a totally different depth to it when it's not there compared to when it's there, okay? So that's kind of the basics on using tuning, right? And you can go so many places. I'm gonna stop short here because it's like, you can sit here and mess with this for hours and hours on, end just with tuning alone, okay? Really, the idea of the video is just how to get to the function. And now you know how to get to the function. And this works really on any pad right now. When it comes to these pads, this is kind of another explanation I wanted to give in this video. You have these little things that I like to call micro mixes. It's a mix within kind of a total track mix, right? Now, when we're looking at this window right here, I am mixing this as if like I'm mixing regular tracks, right? But I'm not really mixing tracks. I'm mixing pads, okay? So how do I see all of these pads in a mixer? If you come up to your top toolbar here and on your fifth icon over, you're going to notice, it's actually kind of your like fourth and fifth one here. You're going to notice these little mixers here, okay? If I go to pad mixer there, and you'll notice now where my console window is, I have this mixer here. I have this kind of console up now that's all these different faders and stuff, okay? If I hit play, you'll notice A1 and A2 are on this mixer, right? So it's kind of a broken down version of the inspector, but except I can see all the pads together, right? Whereas this individualizes what I want to look at, which right now, currently I'm looking at A2. This kind of gives me a full spectrum of all of the pads together because this is kind of a micro mix within, if I go to my track view, my bigger mix here, right? So if I start closing this stuff, right? Here is my bigger mix. Like this is my project. If I might have, this drum kit here and I might have a bass and a keyboard and everything, that's kind of my overall. But once I go inside of this, I've kind of got now this inner mix here of these different pads that I'm reaching with my mixer here, okay? So it's important to remember that because you can get a lot of sounds going very quickly and forget about the overall. Don't forget there's an overall process you don't want to forget about because then things start to sound too high pitch or really muddy, too many mids, right? And you just don't want that to happen, especially when you have a really good workflow going, okay? So that's very, very important when it comes to producing, all right? So, but this is kind of the basics on tuning and what you need to know as far as navigating this specific section and when you're creating in this specific way, okay? Now, a couple of different things I did want to go over really quickly before I wrap this video up is some shortcuts, all right? So obviously, as we know, Command Z is undo, right? So I can Command Z all the way till I start undoing stuff. You'll notice now my screen's moving, right? So that's kind of one. To overdub and to record is R and Shift R. Now, don't forget when you hit R just goes into record. It will record over whatever you have previously recorded if you're not careful. So make sure to just always go Shift R. Just overdub everything. That's what I like to do. So Shift R is the command for overdub, okay? And then we kind of went over the arrow keys. Definitely look into the arrow keys because it makes helping you navigate very, very easy, okay? And then your loop here. The loop also can be a really cool thing to kind of use as a tool that benefits you. Obviously, when you hit spacebar, everything starts from the top, right? You'll notice it always goes back to 1, right? In order to play it from the playhead where it's at, so if you want the playhead to play from there, it would be Shift spacebar and it'll play, all right? Now, it can get annoying having to push Shift and spacebar, especially when you're right in the middle of trying to work on a certain section. So what I like to do is break everything down into bars when I'm working, let's say, in the way that I was right now with tuning. I will just use that loop meter up here, and I will just move this over to where I'm working. So if you kind of hover over it, you'll notice there's a little kind of thing there that pops up, and it allows you to move this blue meter here, okay? This is our loop, all right? So if I move this now over to where the blue, my second bar here, okay, you'll notice my playhead now starts from the second bar. See that? So now I've eliminated having to hit shift spacebar, right? Let's just say I want to work on this second half of this. I can just, have it loop from right here. And I like using that, especially when I'm working on a certain section. I don't have to go shift R, or whatever. Now, mind you, I automate a lot in the recording studio when I'm creating with, I use the automated controller. I use my Studio One. My MPC Beat Studio controller. So I don't really have to do this. But when I'm working like this, let's say if I'm somewhere creating, and I don't have that stuff, this is a really great way to kind of navigate doing that, right? So if you go back, you can just take that back and now it plays from 1, okay? Now, don't forget also too, you might not want the loop on. Sometimes you want to just hear it in its entirety and have it stop. Oops, I kind of hit my mic there. You want to have it stop at the very end. So if you see where my arrow is, take out the loop altogether, it'll only play these 2 bars right here, and then it'll stop at the end. Right? And sometimes you want that. You want there to be a little bit of breath there. You're not listening to everything in a loop. So you say, okay. Okay, so that's pretty cool, right? So now you can add the loop back in and you can listen to your loop, right? So it's, all really, really cool stuff. And yeah, we're just going to keep creating and keep learning. And that's what the videos is and are about, is just kind of learning different techniques and how to further your knowledge in MPC beats specifically, and kind of carrying that over to different DAWs and different, things that you might want to be doing as a music producer. All right. Hopefully this was helpful. Peace and love from all of us at Team Unco Studios. We are so happy that all of you are enjoying the videos, and we thank you all so much for the comments. We could not have done this without all of our subscribers. I will leave some video links at the end, kind of shooting you guys towards different avenues you can find, more shortcuts and more about the automation line and different things like that. All right. If you'd like to see videos, please leave comments and let us know. We're going to be popping out with some other ones about the sampler and a couple of other things that I've had questions, brewing that, we're starting to make videos. So that's what we're going to start answering. All right. So like I said, peace and love, and we will catch you all on the next video. All right. Later.